Welcome. William Kuskin here, and we are at the Going the Distance instructor seminars on education in our new digital world. So today I have absolutely a tremendous teacher. All of our teachers are tremendous teachers. I'm excited for this one because I've worked with Chris in his class, and I'll say a few words on that in a moment. Right now, I want to just say that these are the 11:30 meetings on Mondays where we take a wide focus on educational issues and talk broadly about how to use digital education to leverage excellence in teaching. These have been, we are actually in our 6th meeting, and these have been, I think, just fascinating discussions of teaching, what teaching can do, and where we can go. Next week, we are not going to have our usual Going the Distance meeting because we are moving towards our What's Your Plan seminar. This is a College of Engineering and Applied Sciences symposium that will cover everything from assessment through wellness to engagement, communication, and course design. It is a broad thinking through of what we can do with digital pedagogy. And the title itself, What's Your Plan, suggests that really now is the time. We only have a few weeks before the beginning of the semester. Now is the time to begin to think about a concrete plan for how to move forward for fall. So rather than trying to just present a plan as a one-size-fits-all suit, rather than doing that, we are setting up a series of roundtable discussions that will allow us all to collaborate and surface both obstacles and solutions to how we are going to move forward. So I see this as a tremendous opportunity to bring all our creativity to bear on a common problem and turn that problem into opportunity. So before we get going, I just want to share my screen here for a second and make sure you're all fully aware. This is the What's Your Plan website, and it is easily accessible at www.colorado.edu/engineering/what's your plan, one word. Please go visit it. We describe the plan. There's an RSVP, which would be tremendously useful for everyone to fill out so we know how many people are coming. The topic areas are covered with short blurbs. The topic leaders are identified. The schedule is going to open with a welcome by Interim Dean Keith Molinar, few words by myself, and then we're going to move right to breakout groups. So I think this will be a great session. There's some bios here of the moderators. It will be a great afternoon. It starts at 12 noon, high noon, and goes until 4. That's not a lot of time, well worth the investment. So I just want to say that this What's Your Plan will replace our Going the Distance discussion next week. It will be very important that people come and collaborate. Okay, that said, it gives me absolute delight to introduce Chris Keylor. Chris is director of the Space Grant Consortium. He is also a CU alum in aerospace. From there, he worked at Lockheed Martin, came back, and was one of the founders of the Space Minor. Within that, he has developed a course called Pathway to Space. This course, I have never, in my many decades of teaching, seen anything like this course. It is truly a collaborative enterprise that Chris has built that brings together different perspectives on what space science is. And what Chris manages to do is create an intellectual community in that course like none I have ever seen. I participated in it a few times now, and he literally transforms the lecture hall using posters and plants and streamers and projectiles and projections so that the place feels like a rave more than anything else, a rave of knowledge. And at the center of this is Chris orchestrating all this going on. And when he transitioned to online, I didn't know what to expect. And what I discovered there was that somehow Chris was not only pulling into his online classroom his full complement of over 100 students, but he was bringing in more students than were enrolled in the class. So the community was so powerful that he was drawing students who weren't involved into the class because they wanted to be there. That to me is not only a testament to Chris's teaching ability, but it's the way that we can use digital pedagogy to leverage us into something new. So true to this whole moment of space exploration, I think, is Chris's pedagogy, which leads us into a new frontier. So I can't say anything more than to say I consider Chris a true master of the classroom and the lecture hall, and I'm delighted to see what he's going to do now. Thank you. Chris, I turn it over to you.
That was great. Great introduction. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And yeah, William, that was really good. I'm pretty excited to talk about community. We've really been thinking hard about this, and I think we're in for a pretty interesting talk today. So hope you're getting excited, William. Are you getting excited? I mean, I think we're going to talk about the who and the what and the how.
Chris, I don't want to jump in here, but that's some yellow you have there. Could you adjust your monitor? And I don't know, maybe I was thinking, I don't want to mess you up, but I was thinking that we would do a little more something like what you did in the lecture hall, and not that yellow is really hurting my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw you off, but do you have any other thing going on?
Yeah, let me retool this. Thank you, William. I really appreciate you setting me straight here. So let's try something else. I need to get myself a little, hold on 1 second.
Sorry, folks. I was hoping Chris would bring a little more of the energy and aesthetic, really, that he uses in his normal lecture hall. Ah, what's this?
I'm here. I'm back. This is going to be great. It's much better now. All right, community. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about now. Community, the who, the what, the how, the why, and some crazy ramblings from someone who's a little over 50 years old. So yes, thank you, William. I really needed that. I needed some more hair. Everything is going to be great now. Let's talk about community, folks. First thing, though, I want to do a little bit of a disclaimer. I am not an expert on community. As William said, my background is in aerospace and mechanical engineering, so not an expert. I've had no formal training on community, but I am a human, and that gives me many experiences like you all to experience and know community. So I crave community. I've experienced it many times, and thus I feel I know what's needed to make a community in the classroom, in my neighborhood, in my own home. So that's where I'm coming from today. That's the perspective I'm going to present to you. So let's start first with a few definitions. If you go to Google and you ask Google what community is, it tells us this. It's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, results, and interests and goals. I don't know what that means to you. It means a lot, depending on how you interpret that. But for me, there I am, right there, other Superman, long time ago. But for me, it boils down to one word, and that's connections. Connections with yourself, connection with your teacher, connections with your community, connections with your classmates. All of those things build community. So what I'd like to do is explain to you, or not explain to you, but today I want to go through ways to connect the what, so to speak, of our community presentation. The why, so it's all about the students. We're going to talk about that. And then most importantly, the who and the how, which is you. It's up to you as an instructor, professor, researcher, whatever you want to call yourself. It's up to you to make that community. So let's talk about the ways that I use in my, or not ways, but the ways that I interpret how I make connections with students. And it's through knowledge and ideas, through their connection to their classmates, the way the content is delivered. I mean, my opening remarks were delivered in a certain way that none of you were paying attention, and now maybe 3 of you are paying attention. It's all in how you deliver the content. One of the most important things I've noticed is how you give students shared experiences. Because when you share an experience, whether it's watching Game of Thrones or a Seinfeld episode or a movie or a cat video, those shared experiences help build community. You create ways of connecting to the world, to you as an instructor, because students are interested in you, believe it or not. And then of course them, themselves, those aha moments, which we all crave when we're teaching students. So those are the ways that you connect and those connections you make that form community. And then the why, again, it's really why we're all here. Now we may be doing research, we may be doing other things, but the university is about students and we are there for them. And it makes the difference between a and changing their lives if you can do that in your classroom or in your interactions with them. And then it is up to you and how you foster that communication, those connections. And we're going to go through all these things today here in a moment, but to me, it's unhinging yourself, getting outside of yourself, amplify yourself when you're teaching or working with students, up to 11 if you've ever seen Spinal Tap, or give life to your words and be bold in your actions and in your delivery. It makes so much of a difference in how community is formed when you're interacting with students. So can you create community in a classroom or a lab? How about in a Zoom room or both, which we're all going to be faced with in the fall? And my answer is it requires effort, it requires energy, some skill, some creativity, but the impact on the students and their learning is priceless. And so today I'd like to drill down in some examples and how to translate those examples into the online world. So my plan for today, graphically presented, is my classroom and course. I want to give you some context and the tools I use to create this engagement, but also connection, community within the course itself. And then I'll explain to you how I translated that from the 3D world into 2D when we all went to online in March. I'll tell you how it worked. I'll present some numbers and stories, and then I'll end with some ramblings from the heart of how I've internalized this and how many of you are still probably doing that as well. Oh, and by the way, if we go to the chat window here, I'm probably going to break something. Well, I'm not going to go to the chat, but there it is. If you use the tiny URL that you see there, tinyurl.com cu-community, I've created a note sheet for you. So you can all play along today and see how well I cover the tools and how you can hopefully see examples of how to do some of these things for yourself. You don't have to go there, but if you'd like to, those are the things I'm going to cover throughout my talk here today. And you'll see this symbol as we go through. Oh, there's my chat window. Wonderful. There, it's now in your chat window. There it is. There's the form right there. And you'll see in the upper hand corner of all of my slides now, the symbol that we're sort of talking about. So we're talking about my course. So what I want to do is give you a little context. William's a part of this course as a guest, and he alluded to it in his opening remarks. But my goal with this course was to create, I had the privilege of creating a course from scratch that would allow majors from all over this campus who are interested in space, make a connection to space, see how their major could actually be used in their career in space. And I always challenge students, give me any major and I'll show you a connection to space. And I've got some really challenging ones, a hair designer or fashion designer. I'm like, yes, astronauts, they have hair, they have to figure it out, they have to understand how to manipulate that in space. So there's plenty of connections to space. If this is truly a space university, let's show students they can all be a part of it, a part of that community. So we call it Pathway to Space for that reason. They illuminate their pathway to space. But when I designed this course, I really wanted to break the mold of how you teach in a classroom. And I felt what an opportunity to take all of my years of experience of teaching in the classroom to college students, about 20 years at that point, and apply it and be bold, try something totally different. And I had a lot of folks that helped me do that. But here it is. Well, I'll tell you what it is. So what is this course? So basically, it's a course designed as a show. And if you look here, this is the first year we taught it. This is the last day of class. People are very excited still, even on that day. And what you don't see in this picture, well, you do see a little bit, is this course was so engaging, so, I don't know, life-changing that students brought their friends to class. On an average day, we had 40 additional people in the classroom that were friends of people. People brought their parents, they brought grandparents, they brought friends from other campuses. It was that sort of a community within the classroom. And the trick to doing this, which you'll see in a moment, is to take the lecture out of the classroom. Now, this doesn't fit for everybody, but by doing so, you allow your class time to be devoted to connecting with the content. Even if it's just a portion of a lecture, that you can do that. And it's also perfect for, as we're faced now with trying to do remote learning. So in my course, every lecture is already recorded, and William gives one of the lectures here, and you can see him right here. And as they watch the material, they interact with it. So before they come to class, they've been prepped, they know everything they need about that topic, and they've had questions and interactions with it as they went through it. But then we get to the classroom, and we have this sort of show concept where we engage with the content, we engage with the speaker, whether that's myself or a guest lecturer, and that allows us to make all these connections. You can see here in this picture, this is our classroom, and you can see the posters on the wall, you can see the stage in the front, the props. We transform that classroom every class to give students a feel that it's a different place. And the tools that I use is I have a unique structure, which I'll explain. We do the flipped video capsules, so outside of class. We have two things called maps and stars, which I'll explain just briefly in a moment. We have something called AHA rockets. We have events to do outside of class. We have something called the transporter, and we have teams within the class. And we keep the class going every 10 minutes. There's a break, there's something that changes, which all gets back to the concept of shaking a student. And I know this is not maybe the most appropriate thing to say, but you know, you're taught not to shake a baby, which I totally support. But students in college need to be, you need to shake them every once in a while because they can get into that rut, they can't pay attention. And so the concept of shaking a student every 10 minutes really keeps their level of engagement and connection ability in the course throughout the classroom. So we have a unique structure. I know it's a little bit hard to see here, but every class follows these 10-minute segments. And you can look at this in more detail if you'd like, I'll send it to you. But the point here is that every 10 minutes, we're doing something different with the content of the course. And the whole course starts with a bombastic introduction. If you haven't seen this clip from Spinal Tap,
on stage, but it's very, very special because
I don't know if you can read that at all, but
yeah, the numbers all go This is the top.
Okay, so I come into class every day on 11, and some days, like many of you just don't have it, but you have to do it. It makes the big difference, opening and setting the stage for the whole day, feeding that energy, controlling the weather of the classroom. Here's another intro. It's silly, I know. It's like too much entertainment. I know there's a fine line between entertainment and education, or too much entertainment, and I do try really hard to make sure I don't cross that. But these introductions get students to class every day on time. They want to see what's going to happen, and the learning is there. One of the last things one of the other things is, if you see here, the students are all shooting something. These are called aha rockets. And at any time in the class, if a student has made a connection to something that was said by the speaker, myself, or just a random thought, those aha moments are captured. They launch them to the front of the room in designated areas of the classroom, and we collect those. And students visually see how the other students are connecting. The speakers see that they're making connections, but it doesn't just end there. In the next class, we actually read a select few of those trail mail, is what we call, and we answer them in class. This one's sort of a funny one. Did I have more hair in high school? Yes, I did. Or people send their thoughts about how things are going. Or in this case, just last semester, it's only in 2020 that the Pentagon can release UFO videos, and it barely makes the news. So you're hearing students, you're letting them know you're listening to them. And that is all enabled every class through that unique approach. And they doodle, and they do all kinds of artwork and process as they're working. The other thing has anyone ever heard of the word, the program Dance Your PhD? Can you explain what you're doing with your PhD to your grandma, to the lay person in a performance? And we do that in the class. So these students have watched the video, they've all seen it, and then they do an interpretation as a team of something called a material application performance. And that here, again, it's some students have stage fright, but they learn the material because they're teaching the material. The point here is you're giving the students a chance for a moment to be the instructor in the classroom. Now, it looks like entertainment, but believe it or not, they put a lot of thought and energy into explaining the concepts of that lecture in those performances. All right. And then the other one is stars. So students take a chance to ask me or the guest questions. So they run the class for that 10 minutes. They come prepared with questions. They engage the instructor or the guest. And it's so interesting to see where their minds go versus if I had been asking all the questions. And that's another 10-minute segment. And then the other one of the biggest highlights of the course is we go somewhere every class with the guest or myself. Here's a little snippet of one of William and I's little transporters.
Hey, where's Time Warp?
Oh, and it looks like it jammed up. I don't know if you can all still see that.
This is great. I want to show you this. All right, let's go on.
We may have had a major malfunction. Can you still see my screen playing? No?
It's chilly there. We transported into the.
Have I lost everybody?
Should have set the setting different.
I can see it.
Is it playing?
We can see it.
Here we are. Where? Oh my gosh.
Okay, now I can't stop it.
We are in the electronics lab in the College of Music at CU Boulder, and here's John drumming.
Okay, I'm having a problem, William, if you can hear me.
I can hear you. What do you want to do?
Okay, I can't stop
My
this.
great champion of all things
Can you
aerospace.
stop
How you doing, sir? I'm great. Come on in. Yes, yes. I'd like to introduce you to Chris Keylor, Director of NASA's Colorado Space Grant Consortium and instructor at University.
I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm having a major issue. I can't stop the video, and I can't do anything. My computer screen is completely locked up.
I'm hoping. Oh, he's here.
Well,
Oh
it's
my God.
complicated. You want to relog on?
Elsa.
Nice to see you, Chris.
Hello, hello. Good to
Welcome.
see you again.
Why don't you log on?
We just transported from Boulder.
Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome. Come on in. We'll tell you how about all.
Screen share. All right, I think Chris stopped. So let's see here. maybe we can say that this gives us a chance to reflect on some of the issues he brought.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I had another, let's see here. William, can you unshare my screen by chance?
View options, stop participants sharing. It doesn't want to stop sharing. Oh, there it goes. Good. It is stop sharing. We'll put you on speaker view there. So.
All right.
Good.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had planned to have a special field trip with you all and using my phone, but I'm just gonna keep going if that's all right. And when my computer comes back up, I will begin again if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great.
One of my lessons is I don't ever share my screen in my classrooms on Zoom for this very reason. And I'll explain how I do that. So I'm really sorry to have this disruption, but one of the things I try to teach my students is to embrace the live aspect of lectures. We've talked about recording and making it perfect. And as you can see right now, this is not perfect. This is far from it. But students appreciate the live, anything can go wrong. They're working without a net. And that's my best way of saying right now, I'm sorry for this, but we're gonna make do. All right. So the transporter, that's what we do. We take the students on a journey every class, and it's another shared experience that they get to have and that you talk about throughout the entire semester. And then where I was gonna go, because I have my slides here on paper. So sorry, here we go. We also have events, and events include after hours movie nights where we talk about movies. We also have guest lectures that are taking place on campus. And gosh, I'm trying to do too many things at once here. Call back into the Zoom call on my other computer here. This is a good one for recording, isn't it?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay. I have to type, and I'm not good at multitasking anymore. Okay.
Good. You're back.
Okay. Some la-di-da. Is anybody still left, William? Or
Yeah. In fact, we have a very good number of participants. Yeah. Keep going. It's fascinating. And you're on. So keep rolling.
all right. I'm going to do less of the videos, perhaps. Let me share my screen again. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and just do it this way. I'm so sorry for the lack of professional viewing, but if I have another glitch, at least I'll have a few more options this way. And you can also read my notes, which will be fun if you're really quick. So we have events, as you can see here. Those events include even a dance. I mean, how many other courses on campus have a dance? We actually bring students together at the end of the semester. We have games, and these students bring their friends, which helps perpetuate the community as well. And again, I should mention, all these students are from across campus. They're not just in one gender, or not one gender, one discipline. And then at the end of the semester, you can see, again, a group of students who are very excited to have been through this and have made new friends and feel connected to the campus. but it's still a real course. We have exams, we have assignments, there's complaints about the workload, but it is a real course. And we have 4 years of 700 some students now of data to show that it does produce engagement beyond many expectations of my own levels, as well as those connections in community. And then I know this is an eye chart, but if you just take a quick look at some of these statistics from students as they have taken the course. Specifically the last one, 89% of students agree that Pathway helped them feel like they were a part of a supportive community at CU Boulder. That's pretty good number if you ask me. And then of course, let's shift gears for just a second. We all got notice that we're gonna have to do this online. So the context I just presented to you, this highly engaging community building course in person, how do you transition that into the world of Zoom? And so that's where we're gonna go next, translating it. And I really don't wanna show this, but if you've all seen Apollo 13, they talk about how do you take a square peg and put it into a round hole. Great scene of the movie. And that's how many of us felt. For me, I saw this picture shortly after all this was happening, and I thought, oh my gosh, here's the plans for my semester. Here's when I told I had to, go from a teaching to remote, and what actually might have happened. And I didn't want that to happen to my students. Many of us didn't either. So how can you create this community, especially from a course like this in a virtual world? And that's what I want to show you. One of the things I did though is on the last day of in-person classes, I made a commitment publicly to the students as well as myself that this course isn't over. I'm not going to give up on you, and I'm going to put everything I can into trying to be creative and find a way to do this. And that really helped me, honestly, not lose sight of what I was trying to do. I took 2 weeks off, or I took 2 weeks to figure out how to do this pivot. I recreated my classroom in this bedroom. I decided not to record it. I wanted it to be live. I wanted students to click or stick to a routine, and they all told me, most of them, I was forcing them to have a regular schedule. 3:30 on Tuesday, Thursday, they knew where they had to be, just as if they were on campus. And as William said, there's only 120 people in the course. On average, every day we were exceeding that on our Zoom rooms. And I was like, what is going on? We got Zoom bombers here, we got whatever, I don't know. Turns out we had friends, we had parents, it was great. And I did get really creative. So here, as you remember that picture, here's my office or my spare bedroom. I brought in props from the classroom. I brought in our backdrop, I brought in the transporter. I was using a bunch of computers and other microphones. But basically we recreated the whole set, so to speak, in my office here. And one of the things I learned was I never shared my screen, because as you've seen so far, when you're sharing videos, things can go wrong and then it's a disaster. So I hooked up a projector, made a screen in my office out of a sheet, and I recorded the actual video playing on the projector. Never had a single issue with that, and students actually saw that. They never saw the jerkiness of the videos, and it was really helpful for that. I used 3 Zoom accounts, 2 laptops, 2 cameras, good audio, lights, Ethernet, iPad, a lot of stuff, but it helped bring to life the course. And here's, I'm going to try this one again. Let's just see what happens. Maybe. Is it playing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the CU Space Show. Today's guest is you and someone else, and
Yeah, it's a little weird, I know, to watch, but you got to get them really excited, even though you're
last day of class, yeah.
even though they're a bunch of blank screens, they're there, and you have to remember, I had to remember that. We still did the AHA Rockets through a Google form. We also use something called Padlet, which is a tool that is for free, but allows people to throw things on a wall as they're in the course. And here's one from one of the courses we were doing. We continue to do the trail mail. I'd answer questions from those, including
or using their
let's skip ahead here.
family watching.
This is someone sending a picture of their dad who decided to start watching their college courses with them throughout the semester. So we acknowledge that. The dad came on for a second. We reach out to students online who sent in something about a job they got from being in the course. And we did a quick little interview with the student.
I saw Professor Argyle.
So again, the point is this is a large lecture classroom, but we're still finding ways to connect individuals and help support those connections, even in the remote world. We continue to do the maps and the stars. Students got really creative. I was so impressed with what they were able to do remotely and maintaining social distancing. Here's William as my guest that day. We would still interview the guests. So you can see I have the guest on its own monitor. So again, we're trying to invoke this happening in the real world in the classroom. I also learned to embrace the chat. Initially, it was very distracting to me, but then you realize that's where community is being built. Students are processing as they go through the course. We did have monitors that were checking that things were not getting out of hand. But once we established sort of the ground rules, students played within the play box or the sandbox. And it was really helpful. It was a great way to see that community build. And then we took people on field trips. As you can see here, one day I just spontaneously, I said, let's go for a drive in my car. What it was connected to our guest, but he's whatever. Jim is a true rocket scientist entrepreneur. He drives fast cars. And we usually do something like that in class. So we're like, hey, let's go out and take a drive in my car, but we couldn't do it in person. We do things after class. So just because we're online doesn't mean we can't try to recreate that after class experience, both with myself and the guests. So we'd always keep the room open, so-called after hours. We continue to hold our events. We even did our moonwalk dance virtually, and you can see a small snippet of the students that showed up. We did, dance rooms. We had origami rooms. We had art rooms where students were learning how to paint and trying to do it while they worked. So that was also another community building. And then I did go above and beyond. I sent them each a care package with comic books, stickers, a note, and it had a huge impact on these students. I know not everyone can do that, but it was, I think, something that set us apart to show that they still mattered, that they still were not just, out there in the void or in the ether. So that's sort of the transition that I took from 3D to 2D. And now I want to quickly wrap up with how did it work. And I know you're not going to be able to read these boxes or bullets, but if you did have time, you would see that students, not all students, some did not like what I did. I mean, it's the real world here. It's not Disney, but they sent notes. Their parents sent notes. There was this genuine, oh my gosh, there's still hope for the future. And it was an amazing community of students that still persisted through this transition. A few other stories that actually happened. And then we took some data at the end of the semester, and you can see here, the level of community actually went up this year versus last year, even though we did not have the full classroom experience. All of the elements that we still kept in the course still continue to have real high positive contributions to their learning. And this is probably the most surprising. We asked this new question this year. If they knew ahead that they would have to attend this class via Zoom occasionally, would they still sign up for the class? And almost 80% said they would still do so. So those are some quick summaries. The last thing is basically some rambling through all this on my thoughts of community, and then I will wrap this up. So I've heard on all these different talks that we've had here over on Mondays that there's this fear or concern that I have as well about teaching to the void. But they are there. Even though there's a bunch of black screens, they're still there. They're watching, they're listening, they're looking for ways for you to connect with them. And while routine is important, having variety is just as important in how you teach. My advice is to constantly evolve your approach as you're working with this remote learning or trying to build community. Iterate on your delivery. Look for ways to embrace the Zoom world. Like, it's really simple to have a 10-minute phone call with somebody to help bring to life something you're talking about. Whereas in the classroom, you have to pre-coordinate that, get them parking, give them a map. Now you just have to call them and they'll drop in and you suddenly have this new bit of input to the content and connection. Seriously consider what you can do sustainably versus live versus perfectly recording things. Granted, if you're doing a flipped classroom, you're going to have to go through that effort initially. But in the producing of each class, I highly recommend. Student feedback I got was they loved that they had to be there to be involved. The whole fear of missing out, FOMO, played a huge role in keeping those students coming to class. And then stories. Talk about what's going on in your life, about how this content affects you or your people in your family, whether it's COVID or the content at hand. Students love stories. And the last thing is, you are interesting. Don't put a glass wall around yourself. Break through that and share with your students what you're going through, how you connect to the material that you're presenting. You are the key ingredient to all those different connections. So in summary, this is where we started. How you connect the what you're connecting to, the why, and then how you are so instrumental, the who and the how of making community in your classroom. So with that, I apologize for all the mishaps, but hopefully you still glean something from it. And I didn't get a chance to do the field trip with you, but that's okay. You got the gist. So with that, I thank you for your time and attention, and let the tomato throwing begin.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you. That was mind-blowing. I'm glad we still have 15 minutes for conversation, and I want to open it up to the audience. I think there's so much in there to talk about, think about, and ask about. So go ahead, questions.
Okay, I do have a question for you, Chris, and that is, do I understand correctly that you didn't record any of the class sessions themselves, so people had to show up or fear missing out? It looks like you might have recorded some of it for yourself. Did you record and simply not share it?
I recorded every class through Zoom, and it is stored on the cloud, because I did recognize that some students were international and lived in different time zones. And so I worked with them one-on-one, but I did not advertise openly that you could just watch the recording. I wanted to challenge them to have a routine where possible. And I think I had 3 people that said they wanted to watch the recording. I had one student that was in Bangladesh who chose, I don't want to watch it, I want to watch it live. So he got up at whatever it was, 2 in the morning to join it live, but he did it willingly. Long answer, hopefully got to the right your question.
Great. No, I think that's so critical for doing a flipped classroom experience. If the whole point of the in-class is meant to be the interaction, then people really have to be there or they miss. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Chris, this is Sandra. Talk a little bit about the amount of work. I'm struggling right now with this notion. I think that if as you said, if the class itself during the hours that you're meeting with the Tuesday, Thursday, say that you're going to make it more engaging and they have to come prepared, then by definition they have to do more work outside of the classroom. So I'm struggling to what is how much is too much?
I mean, on the students' part?
On the students' parts, yeah.
Well, I'd have to show you the syllabus again, where I actually estimate the amount of hours they spend in class and outside of class. And I think I can just speak to it verbally, but they worked about an average of 5.5 hours of work outside of class. And I don't think that's abnormal for specifically an engineering course. So that includes watching the videos. There's a book that they have to read a chapter every week. There's an additional source of content that they watch and consume before class. But I don't know. For me, students complain about a lot of things, including workload, no matter how little or much it is. But my goal is that they learn something, and I feel that's an appropriate amount of outside work for them to come into the class with that core knowledge and core experiences to take something more from the interaction. So I've kind of soft shoot around your question, and I don't know if I answered it. And you're muted, Sandra, I'm sorry.
The step that I will take next to what you said, or so to further what you just said. So assuming that we don't have the ability, just because of the topic, to be as engaging as you are, for example, I'm wondering if the amount of work that you provide them, if they know there's going to be a reward because of the way you conduct your classroom. And I'm wondering if that would translate to more typical classes where the level of engagement is not as high. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I think I understand your question, but I don't want to go on a rant if I don't. So, or not a rant, but a ramble. I mean, are you thinking like how do you do something like this in a calculus class?
Well, yeah. For example, you give them 5 hours of work, and then they get to the class, and it's just wow, right? Yeah. Although, even though we could argue that we can make it engaging in a calculus, but not, and I don't know to the level that you have.
I think if we can't, then I don't know. I just feel like that's a disservice to students. I mean, there are reasons why certain classes are more popular than others. Lots of reasons, but in my mind, there's no reason why calculus can't be as exciting and interesting to students. Physics, chemistry. If we all thought about how we can connect what we're trying to teach to reality of what the students are going to do or are doing in a lab or in a job someday. I remember my freshman year at CU when we had a mentor in the college who met with us in small groups, and she was explaining to me something about calculus and how it best defines the curve of an off or on ramp of a highway, this continuous curve. I'm botching it right now, but to this day, 40 some years or 30 some years later, I still make that connection to what that one person said about how calculus is used in the real world. And so my point is there's really nothing but us standing in the way of making those connections with any subject matter. Now I'm on my soapbox, so.
Can I add a comment in here about I found that when I ask more of the students outside the classroom, and I mean within a reasonable parameters, if they come in having done that preparation, the class is engaging. If they come in having not done any preparation, then I'm sort of talking at them. But the minute that it's set up ahead of time, I mean, you can ask questions that sort of set up their engagement walking in. And them having read the material or thought about crazy questions or things that I've done ahead of time means I don't always have to be quite as much of a showman like you are, but that they're, oftentimes giving them assignments ahead of time, they'll come in already asking the questions I wanted to be talking about. And so that it actually sets up for engagement. And I don't know that they need an extra reward. They've gotten that reward by.
That's great, Amy. And I can just tell you that I see that in different forms as I teach. Yeah, there are certain days where I don't feel like I have to do anything. Like the class just runs itself because the students are bringing to bear what they want to learn, what they've learned, how they engage with the others in the classroom. It's not a cakewalk, but if they all come to from the same place and have this play time essentially with the material, it's amazing what they discover and what they've brought out and learned from it and what they share.
Chris, I have a question that's less philosophical. I think this is really interesting and cool, and I'm trying to think of how I can do more flipped classroom and things like that in my classes. What tool do you use for the videos to have the students watch videos and do questions like at the same time? Because I think that is my hesitation to doing a lot of flipped classroom things has been, what do students miss if they don't, how do I make those videos or those readings really engaging and make sure that they're getting out of it what I'm hoping they're getting out of it? So I'm curious about the tool.
The tool itself is called PlayPosit, and it's a direct plug-in to Canvas. So when I create a module for an assignment with a video and a YouTube link, rather than just putting a YouTube link video, I insert a PlayPosit module. And
I jump in here? The last Tech Friday was on PlayPosit. So if you go to the Going the Distance webpage, Donna Hall takes us through PlayPosit.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's how you can take any video, whether it's on Kaltura or whether it's on YouTube, and you can insert the questions. And there's even new features on PlayPosit that really up or amp the engagement. It's pretty simple to do, but then it does auto grading. It does everything like that. You can even have open-ended questions, but then you have to grade those. That's the tool to do the engagement, but the recording of the videos, CU used to have a studio where you could bring faculty in and do all that. They don't have that, at least to my knowledge, anymore. So that tool is a little bit different, but I'll be honest, I use my iPhone and some wireless mics and it works. Students they're okay with that, is how I perceive it. They don't want a polished studio shot. They're happy with, I did one with a guy on the Buff Bus going around campus. And anyway, hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Chris, we're coming down to the end here. I want to hit you. First thing, thank you. Thank you for giving so much of yourself. Thank you for giving so much of yourself in your class. And thank you really for this performance today. Thank you. I want to hit you with two questions. Really, they're one question. Someone may watch this and say, hey, that's a tremendous effort you're putting forward, but you're cutting down the content and replacing it with spectacle. Would you answer that question head on in a closing statement?
Sure, I'll try. I would argue that if you walked in and pulled up a piece of chalk and for 75 minutes wrote on the board, and you look out occasionally to the audience and you see people on their phones, on their laptops, not engaged, you're cutting content. You're cutting opportunity to connect people with that content. Whereas if you give them an opportunity to learn that in a different way, whether it's a hybrid of in-class or pre-recorded, and then take the time you've cut out of the so-called content to make connections to the content, you have just increased the retention of that content. To anyone that would perceive that as cutting, I'd argue it's adding and embellishing, or not embellishing, increasing, enhancing that content.
Wonderful. Thank you. We still have 2 minutes. Do you want to make a final statement beyond that?
No, I'm not. I'm just one person. My way is not the right way. I, like you, I have learned things from Jem and others that have given talks, and all I ask is that maybe you learned something here today that you might dabble with, and again, remember the why. The why is those students, and they're right now in a very so-called fragile state. I just had a meeting with students this morning, and I asked them, how excited are you about the fall semester, through a Google poll, which is another great tool to use, or sorry, Zoom poll. And they're all overwhelmingly, yes, excited about fall. Following question, how prepared or informed do you feel about fall semester? 100% no, not at all informed. Didn't say CU or anything like that. But anyway, my point is, these students have a lot of uncertainty right now. And if we could all do something to help them remember what they're coming to see you for, and really try to embrace the situation and help them learn, I think it could make us stand out in a positive way.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Your energy is both daunting. The amount of work you put into your course is Herculean, but it is also truly inspiring. And it inspires me to go beyond what I see as the boundary of my teaching and really try and risk something new. Try and risk something new, both performatively, but also intellectually, because I think your point about engagement, about the moments we use to engage our students and to imagine their enthusiasm being heightened by our own, that is truly inspiring. So I think you've really hit at the core of what we want to communicate at this point, which is, yes, we are faced with a challenge like none we have seen before, but we also have the tools to turn that challenge into opportunity, into something amazing where we can meet our students and inspire them forward the way you have inspired us. So all I can say is thank you, and to everyone else I say, onwards. I hope to see you all at the symposium on Monday at noon. Onwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.